let's leave it at that for the moment. There's more I should put in there, but I'm just not going to do it because it's getting so cluttered. I just put in the basics that I could fit in for now, if that's okay. I hope you don't mind. Hello, Fluffles. Good evening. Hello, Ivona. Okay, certainly I can do that. Thank you so much, Fluffles. Yeah, super. I've still let me finish adding the things here that really concern me here. I've still got this thing going on here. Okay, just gonna fill it in here. Okay, and I'm gonna put that very lightly over there, that very lightly over there. So this is what concerns me today, right now, tonight. So we have this and this and this and this. We've also got this one, of course. All right, so. All right, let me check in. Let's see, where am I? Let's see. What a mess. Look at that thing. Thing is, with the chart the way it is right now, a lot of the planets are sort of clustered, but also spread out. And there are lots, if you see lots of I'll just put it up here. If you see lots of these green lines, that means harmony. And there's lots of them. See the long ones, those are trines, okay, over here and here and here. And the sextiles are the little short ones over here and here and here and here. It's all harmonious energy between the planets. These little gray marks here are the planets. And next week, I'm going to get rid of the dates in the middle. And I'm just going to stick it up here. Because it took me years to figure out that putting the dates in here just makes things more confusing to look at. Of course, we've still got this ongoing nodal axis, south node to the north node, under a lot of pressure from Pluto for the whole world. Relationships. Let's see now. Excuse me, I'm still dealing with allergies and stuff, congestion and whatever. Right now the sneezing isn't too bad, but the congestion it goes on and off. It doesn't matter whether I'm inside or outside, whether it's cold or hot, whether the air is clear or whether the air is full of allergens, whether I'm with the cats or not. So there's something else going on, and I'm not used to it. My body is really struggling with this stuff. Anyway, thank you, Fluffles. Let's see if we're good to you. Yeah, right. I'm hanging out up here in my fantasy escape cottage in the Oregon West Coast on a sunny day, of course. Right now, Oregon is drenched in an atmospheric river because if you go a little bit further north from where we are right now, you head up into the cold climate, cold weather rainforests. Hello, Love Triber. The rainforests way up north in Oregon State and Washington State, they are some of the densest rainforests up in the world. And then when you get up into Vancouver and British Columbia and southern and central western Canada, it's extremely rich land because of the moisture and the rain and the atmospheric currents that are very predictable. So over here, typically you get beautiful summers, just absolutely gorgeous. You don't get the blistering 120-degree heat. You get more like the 80s and, that kind of thing. Because it's at least 1,000 miles north of where I am right now. And the good thing about up in this area, I've been doing a lot of research, is that it's on the ocean. So there's a lot of ozone and there's a lot of nice rich air. And with the ocean, of course, it keeps the temperature fluctuations very narrow between hot and cold, in summer and winter in this part of the world. So let's have a look. We got a couple of readings coming through tonight already. First of all, thank you, Fluffles. We've got another one just booked in for Love Triber. She just arrived. So, there we go. Let me go over here a second. I'm going to go to the stage for a while. Hold on. Alright, first of all, of course, thank you for visiting. Let's get Fluffles up there with her magic post-it note. Get things started. And we'll do a blind reading, like you said, for what's coming up in the next 3 months. Okay. And I'll just make a note here. Next 3 months. Well, I can tell you right now, without doing any kind of reading, that there's going to be big changes going on in the world. America, of course. And we got another one here from Love Triber. Here, okay. Let me put that up here. Thank you. Delightful. I could probably handle one more reading if anyone's interested. Let me go over here for a second. I'm going to put these out of the way. Tuck this over here for now. Let's have a look. Oh, where is it? Well, let me just check in again over here. There's this young astrologer girl who popped up on my feed a couple of times recently, and I think it's because we have similar interests. And she seems to be like a, I don't know, I would call it like a trust fund baby who can live anywhere and do anything. That's just my impression. I have no idea. She travels a lot. She currently lives in, I believe, central eastern France. And she's very well studied in her astrology. And she obviously watches other YouTube channels. I can tell by some of her notes. And one of them is, it's called Astrology Podcast. And it's usually these two very sophisticated, very academic astrologers who love to do all their chit-chat on a split screen with their Zoom meetings and all their very fancy, expensive charts and everything. And I don't really watch them because they go very, very, it's detailed and it's highly relevant to the way I operate. But it's like, it's more as though they're interested in, oh, hello. In the academics of the whole thing. And I like how it pertains to people. There's so many good sources of, let's say, reporting or information or knowledge and communications out there that I feel are in, they're very precarious because I think they're on the verge of censorship. The censorship rules are really expanding across Western type nations, basically Western Europe, Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand type of places, because those are considered the main threat to the globalist elites. And so they have to be shut down. And the Astrology Podcast people talk about global things a lot, like I like to. I'm interested in those. And this girl, I think her name is Helena Woods or something. think it's what it is. I don't think that's the name of her channel. I forgot. But anyway, hello, Russian Thoughtbot. Good to see you. Hope everything's good. Apparently, Vladimir Putin has just decided he's going to run again for election in 2024. He's already been steering the ship of Russia for, 20 years now? And there's really no one to get in the way to be reelected because all his, let's say, political opponents have magically disappeared. They don't exist anymore. I wonder how that happens. It's probably the same thing that happens in China. Hi, Bubba. Hi, Bubba. I gave you lots of treats and we had lots of cuddles earlier, so you should be okay for the show. Okay? Oh, look at Bubba. He's like, I think his fur is very shiny at the moment. And he's got little problems around his butt because he keeps licking the fur and it's getting all kind of clumpy. But anyway, it's funny with the cameras and the lightings that he sort of looks like a virtual cat sometimes or not. But anyway, Helena, with this girl, she was focusing on, look, there he is. Look, showing up now. Helena was focusing on the astrology of Joe Biden and the election in next year, 5th of November, 2024. And her conclusion was similar to my own without me doing much studying because I know a little bit about the charts already. But it's not looking very good. One of the things I noticed about Grandpa Joe's chart, which I did mention quite a while ago, is that he has a lot of characteristics of politicians. Not to be rude to all politicians, but he has a lot of, he has a Scorpio stellium in the 12th house, including the sun. And this is kind of perfect for being a politician because it's all about forked tongues, lying and keeping secrets and playing both sides of an equation or a relationship or the people and the population. Hello, Necessary Truth. And he's got some other issues with Sagittarius and Gemini, I believe it is. But anyway, she concluded that it's not looking very good for Grandpa Joe. I've already done some homework on Donald and November 2024, and in some ways it's not looking good for Donald either. Because when you look at the electional chart for the day, it's just, it's like an explosion of characteristics that I would call fraud, deception, lies, betrayal. And the interesting thing about Donald is that it's like a face-off. It's basically truth versus lies. So it's going to be very, very interesting. My personal feeling is that even though Trump is way, way ahead in the polls, and it's now taken over the Democrats and everything, to the point where the Democrats are freaking out, even on mainstream media, because there's nothing they can do. On the other hand, the deep state and the globalists we already know that they're not going to let this election go to Donald unless it's some kind of deep state selection process as opposed to an election and whatever they call it, controlled opposition or something. The thing is, when we get to that time of year, we're already going to be dealing with very convulsive astrological aspects. So it's a pretty hazardous to predict anything. In terms of very simple predictions, it looks very obvious that Donald would get the vote. But having such an astronomical lead and an extremely powerful astrology chart, very much aligned with the rebirth of America, it's still a major battle between truth and lies, because the deep state that controls all this stuff is the enemy. They are the enemy. They are enemy number one. They are the enemy within, and they are extremely big, extremely powerful, and basically untouchable. So it's going to be a very, very interesting time in American history. Can I do a chart for a country? Well, I can, sort of. If I would have to do quite a bit of homework, quite a bit of history for that chart, and even then it would be a little bit speculative. The only reason I talk about the American chart is because it's fairly well accepted in the astrology world as a particular thing that's already quite well defined, and it makes total sense to me. But yeah, I guess I could. Thanks for asking. Yeah. No, you're the 13th, he's the 14th. Yeah, Geminis. Oh, little Bubba. Oh, little Bubba. So, I want to kind of go back to the stage for a moment and have a look at a few things before we get into the readings. You know I like to do those things. Let's have a look. All right, what do we got? Okay, there's Bubba's butt. Cheers, everybody. I've got some iced tea, and my decongestant feels like it's slowly starting to work a little bit. I've got a list of little topics I want to mention, but before I get into it, I want to point out a few things about the chart itself. We have this ongoing relationship thing here for the whole world. And the theme, we've gone over it many times. I haven't done any actual deep dive Libra. Actually, I did. I did a whole sequence. Now I think about it. I did a whole mini playlist about the Libra North Node for all 12 signs. Huh, yeah, I forgot about that. Wow, yeah. Anyway, it's under a lot of pressure. The pressure is to do with the relationships, and essentially the relationship from humanity to humanity. Like expendable, sick, toxic, unhealthy relationship dynamics that need to be released, and moving globally towards a new dynamic of individual sovereignty, okay, where everyone reclaims their right to be themselves. And what I'm noticing with the charts for the world is that what I see is a sort of enslavement, that we the people have been enslaved in relationships with global elites that are extremely toxic and extremely redundant. And it's time to recalibrate relationships between ourselves and the wealthy and the powerful in such a way that we the people reclaim our sovereignty, and any wealth and power that is obtained or bestowed upon a handful of elites is granted by the people instead of stolen by the elites from the people. So if you've noticed across the world right now, if you watch the stuff, if you will look at the world right now, there's massive upsurges and uprisings in globalized communism. Number one over here in China, of course. Number two, over here in Russia, they are really flexing their muscles. China's really flexing its muscles. Iraq, Iran, most of the theocracies over here are basically Marxist dictatorships all over here. Of course, you've got that over here in Myanmar. And a lot of the African countries effectively operate as Marxist-type dictatorships. And then similarly over here in Central and South America, there's a lot of Marxist, communist leadership and behavior. And it's very, very strong. It's very, very aggressive, very powerful. We also have another variation on globalized Marxist extremism coming out of here from Brussels and Davos in Switzerland in the form of the World Economic Forum, aligned with elites over here in Washington, New York, and the West Coast of America. And essentially they are all one version of the variations on a theme of intense globalized communism. There's a lot of competition between the different factions of communism because they want to take over the world. Klaus and his gang of the World Economic Forum wants to take over the world based on the Chinese model. The Chinese model wants to take over the world based on the Chinese model. And so on. Russia wants to take back the old Russia. Russia wants to take back Alaska. Parts of Central America, they want to take back the old Mexico lands over here. And so on and so on. It's getting really, really crazy. And the ultimate enemy to all this tyranny is right here in little old America. Especially the conservative patriot types. Because they hold very, very strongly to the remnants of this energy here. The right to be yourself, the right to happiness, the right to self-determination, the right to do horrible things if you're willing to accept the consequences, the right to do good things and accept and enjoy the consequences. And one of the beauties about the way that this amazing place was arranged is that it depends on having very, very moral, upright, just, honorable, loving, capable, faith-based population that puts love, God, the healing power of love, above themselves, above their own individualized greed and so on. And they reserved, and they created the Constitution, they created the Declaration of Independence, and they enshrined it in words, on paper, that in a way that had never been done, okay? So, anyway, it's all going on right now, and what people are noticing is all the lies and the manipulation and fraud and brutality of the communist Marxist regimes and how they operate. It's becoming apparent all across the world now. It isn't just, a few isolated places that you read about in a newspaper headline now and again. It's a completely globalized issue, front and center in the communications, in the media, everywhere. And you get renegades that are determined to choose the North Node Aries energy of sovereign self. Donald, for example, and then Javier Milei, for example, Giorgia Meloni over in Italy, for example, and the new guy, Geert Wilders, over in the Netherlands, for example. They are fiercely independent, and they are determined to reclaim their sovereignty for their people. Hallelujah. So, just a couple things. Let me just mention this, and I'm going to go to my little list, okay? So, we talked about the global financial crisis recently, and that is a very, very, very big, long-term, ongoing thing that tracks very closely with the Pluto return, okay? So it's not just something that's going to come and go in a matter of a few weeks, a few months, or a year or two. It's a 20-year duration. We've been building up to it for about 10, 15 years, and it's going to have a 10, 15-year lag time as we cross over the threshold, leaving Pluto and Capricorn behind for another 250 years and going into the world of radical societal upheaval and revolution starting next year full time for about a 20-year period. So we're right on the cusp of all of that right now. We're right in the cusp. This is history in the making, and it's unfolding live, real time in front of us. It's an amazing thing to witness that we're alive at this point, this time in history. It's very, very scary. It's also very beautiful. And it's amazing that, they couldn't do this, 250 years ago. The Founding Fathers and the Pilgrims and all of that, they couldn't do this stuff. They were just people trying to, protect themselves against the tyrannical monsters. But today, this is now, well, it's not common knowledge, but it's definitely knowledge and awareness that's becoming more and more apparent, particularly to people like ourselves here and astrologers and so on. So we predicted very accurately about global financial crises ongoing, and especially because it included the eclipses here on the 2nd house and the 8th house axes. It was absolutely brutal, and it's ongoing, and it's going to get worse, okay? Just today, for example, we've got the moon in Scorpio and Mercury in and Venus in Scorpio. God, I made that wrong here. I put 2 Venuses up here. We got Mercury's up here, sorry. Mercury's up here in Capricorn. The planet of business and commerce is now in Capricorn. Anyway, so the moon in Scorpio right now is directly opposite Uranus in Taurus. Okay, so that's very, very shaky, disturbing stuff, becoming apparent, okay? Shocks and everything in the global financial system. And over here, Venus in Scorpio, right opposite Jupiter. Venus, one of the money planets, over here in the 8th house, the house of other people's money. So, the most obvious examples, we've talked about them before, is the American economy, the Chinese economy, the really big economies, and the whole fraudulent system of fiat currencies going through these tectonic shifts and convulsions as the whole system is being exposed as a fraud perpetrated by some extremely extremely clever and utterly ruthless, let's say, self-appointed gods up here. Just a handful of people, literally a handful of people who figured out the puzzle and how to do it, how to propagate a mind-boggling fraud. And they've been incredibly successful, and it's worked for a certain number of people if you're at the top of the pyramid pile. But if you're at the bottom edge, it's very, very rough. So we've got like a double duty opposition going on here, going between the 2nd house and the 8th house. So it's very rough financially for the world right now. If you've watched some of the stuff I watch, China is imploding real time. No matter how glossy and powerful they make themselves to be in their projections, it's not good. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to mention is this beast up here. Okay? Very early, in early Sagittarius season, the sun was hard squaring with Saturn, and it started to become big headlines in America about the political fraud, deception, lies, and betrayal going on in our politics over here. And certain famous people, there's Grandpa Joe and there's Donald and his crew, and they are kind of like the UFC fighters, opposing each other, truth versus fraud, freedom versus tyranny, and so on. But when I see this very hard square here, Mars and the Sun pretty tightly conjoined, all through the Sagittarius season, it's going to start to hit on Neptune in Pisces here around 24 degrees. And what I feel is going to happen is it's going to become very, very obvious in the mainstream media, not just the obscure, alternative, backroom, secret stealth media where people like us hang out, but mainstream media where it's going to be impossible to hide the fraud, deception, lies, betrayal that is going on inside the federal government, and it's leaking and spilling out all over. Remember, Neptune, leaks, spillage, flooding, uncontrollable failures and losses and disappointment, okay? So this is a very hard square, and it's not even at maximum power yet. So next week, it's going to get really brutal, especially when it comes to the Grandpa Joe and his family. And it's going to be on full display, and the whole world is watching. The people at the very top of the pile of power are watching, trying to figure out how are we going to run damage control for this shocking exposure of our evil fraud. How are we going to cover this up? How are we going to keep the lies and the fraud going? Because we can't have Donald running the show. That's not cool. So we'll see where that goes. But next week, Donald, of course, is also in a very, very front row headline position in the media because of his legal situations, legal law, okay? Sagittarius vibes over here. And all the deception, lies, betrayal, and fraud over here. So it's really going to amplify over the next couple of weeks. And then when we get into Capricorn season, that's a whole other story. And in Aquarius season, oh my God, hang on, folks. Put on your seatbelts because it's going to get wild. All right? Let me go to my notes here. I'll come back to this. All right, let's have a look over here. Yeah, so, yeah, I was just commenting on a few things that stood out to me with the astrology and how I correlate with the stuff that I like to track. So, I just want to run through a few things, if you don't mind. A couple of things came to me, links. I think it was Love Triber sent a couple of links to me today. Both of them went back to BitChute, which is a kind of free speech platform similar to Rumble. There's a lot of stuff on BitChute where you can find a lot of stuff regarding the speaking of truth and the revealing that needs to happen for the healing. And BitChute is very happy to carry people like me and some of these other amazing reporters and broadcasters who do huge amounts of work, mostly for free, to bring extremely important, valuable information to the masses, to the people, so that we can wake up and figure out what the heck we're going to do. And the links that I'm referring to, I regard as truthful and representative of the things that I hold dear. Basically, truth, freedom, the ability to travel, say what I want, feel what I want, and be able to protect and defend myself if somebody threatens me. Okay? On BitChute today, there was a video about Canada and Justin Trudeau regarding euthanasia. As you know, Canada has now basically turned into a communist country, and Trudeau is a puppet of the World Economic Forum. He's the absolute front runner, front page, centerfold, darling of the World Economic Forum. And he's done a very good job of shredding Canada, turning it into this very disturbing environment with extreme censorship and basically turning everything into a communist hellhole. And one of the things that they're pushing lately, of course, is euthanasia. Thousands of people every month they're not dying, they are being, I don't want to say, it's not SUICIDE, it's not that. It's people choosing to voluntarily end their lives because life has become inconvenient. They've decided I'm too old, it's too painful, or I'm broke, I don't care anymore, I've lost hope, I don't care anymore, I'm a human derelict, I'm a piece of human detritus, I don't care anymore. Oh, I'm ashamed of myself because I'm costing my friends and family too much money while they try to be compassionate and keep me alive. Oh, I am a prisoner. Oh, I have a very low social credit score. All of those things are criteria that are being used to basically have an excuse to euthanize people. And it's done at a clinic by hundreds of doctors all around Canada. Message deleted by Fluffles. Oh, there's a lot of messages. Okay. So, thank you. Alrighty. Gosh, that looks so weird on the chat here, doesn't it? Dozens of messages. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was getting very strange here, wasn't it? Very, very strange. So I find that very disturbing. I mean, you can understand the arguments for euthanasia. Bill Gates was on the video describing his perspective. It was like, well, here we are. You know, he's sitting there in his shirt and his tie, and his hands are sort of doing this the whole time, which is one of his things. And he talks in a very high voice. Every now and again, very high voice. And he was explaining, like, well, they're in Canada. They have to figure that, you know, if the last 3 months of an old person or a very sick terminal person, it gets very, very expensive. And when the government decides to allocate all the money to extend the life of that person for 3 months, it's the equivalent of laying off 100 school teachers for the year. So it's a choice. It's dollars, and so the government chooses to euthanize the old person in order to keep the teachers employed. And that was just one example. I mean, you can understand the logic, you know? Yeah, and so on, and so on. Another video came out on BitChute that was connected to the previous one, and they're both from the same channel. I think the channel was called, oh gosh, what was it? Something like Being Suspicious. Oh no, it's called Behind the Curtain. Right. Anyway, it was a very deep dive. I've already watched videos about this from other people, from the Epoch Times and Dinesh D'Souza and 2000 Mules, all those things, which completely prove the fakery that went on in a very big voting event a few years ago that was, some people call it stolen or rigged or denied, and it's still heavily, heavily contested today because it was an extreme ultimate betrayal of truth. Everybody knew what was happening, but it was unacceptable to the globalist elites, and so they rigged a system. So it turns out, when you go deep diving, some of this we already know, the big voting machines, there's Dominion and there's a couple of other machines, and the stocks are owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and some of the other big owners are China. And the deep dive went actually inside the computers and some of the voting machine operators and the voting machine designers, and they all admitted, oh, it's all backdoors. You can ship everything here. You can hook it up to the internet. They showed you, here's how you can rig the votes. You can switch this vote to that vote to this vote. You can block this one. You can add these. And no one would ever know. I mean, it's just stupefying, absolutely stupefying that this is going on. Well, it's not. It's how the world works. The global elites, they like to be in complete control, and that's what they do. They override what is supposed to be an ethical system called voting. It was amazing. It was an amazing video to watch the testimonies from just regular people, like office people and computer manager people testifying, that was years ago we did that, but the machines are still very active today and they're being used in the United States today. In fact, they're used all over the world. So anyway, another one that I watched was from Redacted. I think they're awesome. They were noticing how some on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, Tel Aviv is in Israel, I think it's the capital, there were some huge spikes in what's called short trading a day or two before October 7th when the Gaza-Israeli war began. So it was obvious to some people that the war was going to happen, and some people knew it was going to happen before it happened and before the rest of the world knew. And of course, we already know that. What they call it false flags, I believe, where in the war games, you have to have a reason to attack your enemy. So if you know your enemy is going to attack you, you just kind of look the other way and you let it happen, and you wait till you're attacked. Oh, ow, I've been attacked. Now I have to retaliate. So now we're at war. It's that kind of vibe, okay? So anyway, it was very interesting that these stock traders made millions and millions and millions on short trading a bunch of stocks that were destined to fail, starting at the day of the war, October 7th, 2023. Another thing that is very terrifying to me is about to do with the southern border in America, where Redacted has done multiple reports. They've done more deep diving than anybody I know, and it's extremely disturbing. Very, very disturbing. Talk about the enemy within. So we're talking about people like Mayorkas and Chris Wray and what's his name? The Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and the what's DOJ? What's his name? Merrick Garland. These people, man, they're absolutely terrifying. So anyway, this stuff it's so disturbing. All these thousands of people, thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands flooding in. And a lot of criminals, and they're setting up sleeper cells all over America, ready for the day when they're going to be activated and we're going to have war damage here on American soil. Okay? The United States is the enemy number one. We are enemy number one to the global elites. I watched something also very, very disturbing on BitChute from the same channel, Behind the Curtain. And it was sort of about the people behind the bad things that are happening. And of course, everybody's heard of George Soros. He's very famous for being an extreme anti-human person. And they pulled up, he's one of these people who is funding a lot of the disturbance and the riots and the protests to create disruption and chaos inside the United States. You'll probably notice that there's a lot of what appears to be highly orchestrated events, bad things that are happening that just seem to happen out of the blue. And how do they do that? Very, very, very bad things, okay? But anyway, on the interview, on the report from BitChute, there was one little segment where they focused on George Soros. And when they were asking him, like, so Mr. Soros, you and your Open Society Foundation, you fund hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of non-governmental organizations all over the world to do your work for you. And we've noticed that they all have a similar theme where they're trying to destroy and disrupt elements of the society and the culture and the countries in which they operate. Is that part of your plan? And George says, oh, yes, that's how it works. That's what we do. And so 60 Minutes was saying, well, that sounds very anti-human. Do you have a problem with that? Do you admit that you were actually, as a young man, you betrayed your own people, the Jewish people, and sent them off to camps in order to profit? And he went, yeah, I did. And that left a mark on me, and that's why I am the person that I am today. So 60 Minutes said, would you say that you don't like people, you don't like humanity? And he said, I really don't care. And then the 60 Minutes said, do you believe in God? Do you believe in love? Do you believe in faith? Do you believe in compassion? And he said, no. No. And then 60 Minutes said, well, why do you do what you do? And then he said, well, let's just make money. And they said, is there going to be any other life for you besides this one? He said, no, I'm here. I'm who I am. I do what I do. I admit who I am. And that's just how it is. All I care about is making money. And then 60 Minutes said, well, don't you care about the wake of destruction and evil that you leave in your wake? As you do all the short selling for all the countries and the devastation of their markets and their stocks and their finances and their currency. And then he said, no, I don't care. I don't care about the social consequences. I'm here to make money. There you go. What does that tell you? So he typifies the people at the top of the global elites. He's just one example. There's lots of them. They're all in a private club together. Some of them are very, very sick and perverted, and they've created these really just weird, bizarre rituals to keep each other together so they don't try and quit and leave the society of evil. Yeah, it's very, very weird. In order to do the evil that they do, they have to detach themselves from love. So they are hollow, by choice. All right, so I mentioned the Sagittarius vibes increasing, intense power. When you have the Sun and the Mars together, very tightly conjoined, it's very, very fierce. It's a very fierce pressure on the Neptune in Pisces. It's very violent, so it's going to get very, very aggressive in the courts here in the United States, especially regarding Grandpa Joe and his criminal family and being held accountable, and also for Donald and his alleged crimes for which he's allegedly being held accountable. It's going to get very aggressive, very, very rough in the courts, okay? Just letting you know. The other thing I wanted to mention about one of the links that Love Driver sent me is that Tyson, as you know, makes chicken. You've all heard of Tyson. If you're in America, you've heard of Tyson. They're one of the big people like JBS, Cargill, Smithfield, Tyson. Who are the others? The big, big, big meat people. You know, beef, pork, chicken, turkey. I'm not counting fish or seafood. But anyway, Tyson just signed a very, very big deal in the agro-food world to announce that they are now incorporating insect food into everything that they do. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's very, very disturbing to me. All right, so, yeah. Oh, another thing about the CCP, and one of my notes here, is that the worse things get for China, the more and more Mr. Ping goes out there and projects himself as this godlike creature who is utterly invincible, and he's 100% right about everything, and everyone else is stupid, and that he's doing the world a favor by taking over. If you look what's actually just going on behind the curtain, China is a nightmare hellhole that's falling apart. All you ever see is the big glossy Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and the big ports, and all of that stuff, but you don't see the billion people that live in abject, desolate desperation and poverty. And they don't have backup and resources like we do in the United States. They have zero bankruptcy protection laws. They have very little in the way of Social Security or welfare or relief programs for people who are suffering. Healthcare is very, very dodgy. And the whole country runs on fraud, betrayal, deception, lies, and theft from the top down. Okay? So with Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, and China born with Pisces in the second house of money and value and values, you can see why China is being held accountable and why it's falling apart live in real time now, in front of the whole world. But of course it has to be in total denial. But it can happen. It's called a depression. It's not just a depression, it's a complete implosion of an economy, of a country. There's two types of depression. There's a deflationary depression and there's an inflationary depression. Either way, it's really bad news. Inflationary depressions are like what they have in Venezuela and Argentina and Zimbabwe, where they print so much money, the price of assets goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, that the regular people can't afford anything. Food, gasoline, shelter. It becomes impossible to live. And that translates to poverty. The other one is the deflationary depression, like what happened in the America, where the price of everything crashes because there's nothing to hold it up. And so asset prices go down, 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 down. Boom, 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 boom. And it triggers like a suffocating vacuum, and everybody is essentially, and everyone goes to the bottom. Essentially, it translates into poverty. Either way, it's bad news. China is going through, to me, it looks like a combination. It's very scary. The United States is, holding its own, but it's very precarious. But it's also very, very disturbing. It's very disturbing to see what's happening in China. It's very tragic, but I say I told you so because I told you so. Hold on, I got to check some notes here. There's some orange lights flashing or something. Esther, am I doing any readings? Yeah, I've got 2 readings booked this evening. I could probably handle one more if you're interested, Esther. Fluffles, I'm happy to go last. Okay. Looks like Fluffles has to go off and do stuff. And she'll be back later. Okay. Okay, alright. Yeah, we can arrange all that. No problem. Here's the other thing I wanted to share. I didn't put it on my notes. Some of you might know I'm kind of a fan of these conservative type beliefs and attitudes and speakers. Some of you know I am a person who is probably going to vote for DJT. Let's put it that way. I'm out there. I support his, let's say, agenda. MAGA, let's call it. It's very uncool to say that if you're dealing with socialist lefties and so on. But anyway, I am effectively the enemy. I'm a classic example of the enemy. And with the massive increase in global censorship, especially in Western Europe and Canada, and now even in the United States, people like Tucker Carlson, of course, you know, his platform was removed. Now he's restarted again, and he's doing better than ever before. Same thing happened with Steve Bannon and Alex Jones, and even a few others as well. And Alex Jones has a reputation of being the ultimate, like, firebrand enemy of the elites, because he's just completely, utterly outspoken. He calls it out as he sees it, and he points out anything that he sees as fraud, lies, deception, and betrayal of himself or the people. in whatever the subject might be: war, finance, economics, politics, society, government, politicians, all of it. He calls it out fervently. He's a firebrand, and he has been, let's say, used by the elites as a test case. How do we destroy someone like that without actually assassinating him? Well, they have to shut down all his communication outlets. But guess what? It looks like he's being reinstated. He's being reinstated, and he's making a comeback. And he had a very, very successful interview with Tucker the other night with 9 or 10 million views. Staggering. And now he's being instated on Twitter. So he now has a platform. It's fantastic. Probably going back to millions of viewers again. So I'm happy for that. The truth shall set us free. The elites do not like the truth. The truth is the enemy of tyranny, freedom. Oh, you want me to show the link? Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you, Love Triber. Let me do this. Okay, so I've got room for one more reading. Esther, if you want to jump in on that, I'll show you the link. What you do is you go over here to TarotLumination.com. Excuse me. Oh, God. You go to TarotLumination.com. You find the donate page. You click the donate button. You swipe a card. Put a bunch of money in there, and kaboom, you get a reading. Yeah. Hello, Kaylee. Thank you for visiting. So that's how that works. I can probably handle one more. So we've already got 2. We got 2 bookings. We got one for Love Triber. We've got one for Fluffles. We're probably going to start with Love Triber. So let me get myself organized here, and we'll get on with things, okay? You might, if you want to donate, you might have to go. I don't know how you watch this show, but you might have to get on a device or a tablet or a phone or something like that, and do it all from there. If you're watching on a computer, for example, or if you're watching on a device, you could do the donation on your computer. I don't know how. It's up to you. Anyway, let's see. So I've got to clear some space here. We'll come back to this, okay? Actually, let me do this because I've got to shuffle up some cards and everything. Let's have a look here. Let's see. I think we're good to go. All right, let's have a look here. All right, I'm just going to go blind here, okay? It's almost like everybody should do like a blind reading in a way, because then you get, I mean, it's great to have a theme, you know, to a reading, but one of the things about blind reading is it allows for the maximum opportunity in a reading, you know, because you never know, you really never know what's going to come up. All right, cards are very nicely shuffled. Let's bless this deck, bless every single card, bless the originators. The famous ones, of course, are the Rider-Waite, these two people who, you know, assembled everything and created the modern version of tarot that we have today. But I believe tarot itself is much, much older than anything that I know of. And there's probably a lot of mythology and stuff that I don't know, even though I studied it and I had training and everything. I really am far, far, far away from what I would call an authority or an expert. I wouldn't have a clue how to teach it. But anyway, it's an amazing thing. And the reason I like it is because it gives me a little bit of a buffer between here and whatever is behind the curtain. Because when you're doing pure psychic mediumship or remote viewing or things like that, where you're literally connecting directly with spirit on the other side, it can be very disorienting for people like myself. And I have enough problems as it is staying grounded and oriented here on this planet. It's very, if you knew my astrology, for example, you would understand. So this gives me a sense of stability and grounding, and that's kind of why I like to use the tarot. It gives me something to hold on to. But it is essentially an instrument. It's like a, what's the word? There's a special word for it. It is a, there's like a magical word for it. It's not a tool. It's a, anyway. And of course, Pamela Coleman Smith, she did the original artwork that's inspired a lot of other tarot decks around the world. But she was never fully acknowledged. Apparently she was a trust fund baby, and she was very artistically gifted, and she just did what she wanted to do because she could. And so she was very fortunate. And she devoted huge amounts of time and energy to making paintings for each of the tarot cards according to the recipes from Rider and Waite. And they took full advantage of her and said, well, thank you very much for the paintings. And that was it. They didn't really offer her any money or anything. And because of her nature being the way it was, she kind of went, wow. She didn't even say screw you or anything like that. Anyway, Love Tribe, here we go. Excuse me, I don't do jumpers and flyers and things like that. Sorry, I'm a bit clumsy. I just want to do one last minute thing so that you're aware that this shuffle is purely for you. Alright, so that's good. Now let's have a look. We're just going to cut it up in a normal way. You know how tarot readers do these things. Excuse me, I didn't cheat then. I had to put it off the stage because I lost my grip. Alright, here we go. Here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle it. I'm using my TarotLumination situational spread in case there's anyone out there who's never been here before. You have no idea what's going on. This is one of my custom spreads. I call it my situation spread because it's very neutral. I think of it as a diagnostic tool. Just like what happens when you go to a car place like AutoZone or something, and your engine lights are blinking and you don't know what's happening. Uh-oh. You run in the front door and tell them, my lights are blinking, can you help? And then they rush outside and they plug in their diagnostic tool, and that tells you, aha, yes ma'am, you have a broken catalytic converter, or your oxygen sensor is fading, or you've got a fuel depletion on the pump, blah, blah, whatever it might be. And once you know the problem, then you have a chance to fix it. You got to reveal it to heal it. And that's what this is. That's all it is, okay? It's about the revealing. Let's have a look. Well, I'm going to use this card here as representing external influences like the planets, okay? So that's my usual default setting, so we'll see. And let's have a look. We've got the world. Okay, so obviously life is changing big time. And because I happen to know a few bits and pieces about your personal astrology, it's not surprising. There's humongous changes coming up in the global astrology that affects the whole world. Of course, this is my astrodoodle for today. But what I'm talking about here at the deepest, most profound level for the whole of the world and society is the cusp, where Pluto is in Capricorn, approaching the degrees of desperation and transiting one last time forever into the sign of Aquarius. So this is going to be a massive societal change for the whole of the world. It's going to be for everybody here on Earth, including down to the very individual. Right down to the individual. So that's what we're talking about here, okay, Love Triber? Everything that you've known up to this point is changing. It's the end. It's the end of life. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. Uh-oh, am I going to get in trouble with copyright because of that? I hope not. Anyway, this represents a very, very big closing chapter to world history. This is a 250-year cycle. You were probably born back during this phase here, over here with Pluto, back over here. And now we're here, we're moving into this new one. So it is the end. The beautiful thing about the World card is that not only is it the end, it signals that there's nowhere else to go except to start all over again from scratch with like perhaps new belief systems, new attitudes, new understandings, new protocols, new ways of doing things, okay? New ways of seeing the world, new ways of interacting with the world. Anything and everything. This could relate to relationships, this could relate to finances, location, family, friends. And because we're heading into the Aquarius season, it is the energy of revolution. It's the energy of upheaval. It's the energy of hope for humanity. And it's the energy of rewards for anything good that happened in your life up to that point as embodied in the Capricorn season. Because this represents the sort of pinnacles of achievement over here. And so there's amazing things that have happened in the world over the last 20 years, but there's some also very despicable things. And of course that's normal. There are amazing things have happened, and there are going to be some amazing things that happen going forward as we enter a new world order. Now, a new world order doesn't have to be as scary and horrible as it is coming out of the new world order from here. New world order, the way I see it, is decentralization, where we go far, far away from an extremely pyramidal structure of power, money, and control, more and more towards decentralized energy, towards the sovereign self, where more and more people are going to have a chance to be their true selves, as opposed to the cattle or the slave of the elites. Okay? So how that translates in detail, we're not quite sure yet. But this is a very big let's say, timestamp in the journey of your life. What's the situation itself? Let's have a look. Great. Hallelujah. It's over. So with the Ten of Swords here, to me this is an indication where the worst is already over. You already know how bad things can get. You've suffered astronomical pain, suffering, losses, devastation, cruelty, confusion, from any and every possible angle imaginable. Betrayal, lies, deception, betrayal from loved ones, betrayal from people that you trusted. And when you get to that point where it doesn't matter anymore, you can't destroy me. I'm already fully destroyed. All I can do from here is start over. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, it looks kind of scary, I admit it. It is kind of frightening. But these two cards are very much about endings and accepting the inevitability of endings. And there's absolutely no point. You know, when I was talking about protocols over here, you could think of belief systems, codes of behavior, ways that we conduct life. Everybody inside of them, inside of ourselves, we have a value system. We have a belief system. Like, for example, like myself, I don't particularly believe in aliens. I believe in simple things like goodness, truth, honesty are very, very valuable. I believe in the planets and their energy and so on. I believe in the potential for goodness and loving and being loved, but that's a decision. A lot of people decide they don't want to be loving. So on. Those are belief systems. You could look at that, for example, in the tarot. That could be the Hierophant or something like that. Well, makes me feel that a lot of your attitudes and belief systems have been shredded, taken to the limits, to the point where, okay, whatever was dysfunctional or apparently incorrect has now been identified. So what are you left with? Oh, well, it's much, much simpler when you do everything with truth and you just deal with truth. A lot of us, this is not for Love Tribe, but a lot of us try to prop up our lives using beliefs and thoughts and attitudes and perceptions that we inherited through conditioning. And we get to a point where we might question that. So my feeling is that for you, Love Tribe, you're at already a point where you've been through the shredder, you've been through the grinder, and pretty much anything that you valued and believed and trusted to be honorable and true and good, only to be undermined and betrayed and destroyed, has been revealed. You have a very, very good awareness of the vast landscape of things that don't work anymore for you. So, what do you do with that? Obviously, it's time to start all over again. It's like you can rewrite your history going forward with a lot of freedom. Let's have a look. What are the challenges here? Okay, with the Ace of Swords, it might be very difficult for you to imagine that you really do have a new vista of life and opportunity and truth unfolding before you, because you've been under so much pain and so much pressure for so long, you don't know anything else. You get to the point where the Ten of Swords is your identity. Okay? That's what happens when you have long-term chronic abuse and suffering and pain and challenges that never seem to find resolution. It just becomes, that's what you see in the mirror. And you think, well, that's me, that's my life. And so how could you possibly have even the slightest glimmer or hope that there is a new start, a new beginning, new rationale based on simple, pure truth and logic, very, very straightforward, of which you are already supplied. You already have this in your, with your innate identity, because you to be able to survive everything you survived, you have to be very true and pure deep down in your own way. And you still have that, but you might feel crushed that I don't know if it's true, I don't know if I believe. This is, for example, it could be very easy to have lost hope in humanity and faith and freedom and the ability to be happy again through rational thought and choice, you know. But it is possible. But with that fear, of course, it's just like, why bother? You know, what's the point? We're all doomed. Life is hell. Life is miserable. I can show you. I can prove it. I'm a living example. You don't want to be me. But can you see how you end up stabbing yourself in the back when you perpetuate those beliefs? So, deep down inside, you do have all the ingredients for new starts, new opportunities, new beginnings, based on new, very, let's say, at the germination phase of seeing life in a new way, new perceptions, new attitudes, new thoughts. It's actually there, okay? How are we going to deal with this challenge going forward? Okay, so with the Devil card here, this could indicate that this marriage with pain is so intense and so severe, like I mentioned earlier, this becomes one's identity. And I've said this on multiple readings before over years and years. Not every reading is like that, but whenever I see the indications of the dynamic that we just talked about, where we identify with our pain and that becomes our identity, when we face a situation going forward where the healthy option is, of course, to let go of that, it would be like letting go of your identity. And that would be like such an extreme vacuum. It becomes terrifying. In other words, who am I? I've said this before. Who am I without my pain? Who am I without my stories of pain and suffering? Who am I without all this tragedy and suffering and loss? Who am I? And that becomes a vacuum of terror, like, I don't know, who am I? And so, of course, by nature, we naturally hold on to that. But with the Devil card, this is not obligatory. This is not an obligation. This is circumstantial. And the indication here is that you've become bound to your identity of pain and suffering and loss to the point where it's so terrifying to actually let go of that as a signature or a hallmark of your identity because of the fear of the unknown. Obviously, everyone's terrified of the unknown. What is that? What lies there in the unknown? But the only way to get to here is to unlock oneself from this deeply well-established history of yourself that you already know. It's not easy. What I'm seeing here with the Devil card is it will be done incrementally. For example, let's go back to the chart here. How do you unlink from this bondage? Okay? And this is a bondage that was imposed upon you. Remember that. You did not impose this upon yourself. This bondage is imposed upon you, but it has become so severe, so ingrained, that effectively you don't know anything else. So how do you release yourself? Well, you have to be aware that you do have a choice. You have the choice to to liberate yourself and start all over. The end of this life, and the beginning of a new life in a new world. But it has to be done very, very gently. So let's say this little tiny reading here is actually a very long-term reading, where we're talking about one link at a time, snipping one link at a time from the chains of bondage until you get to the last link where it's just like, oh, now I'm free. Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, there we go. Now, let's have a look. That's your reading. Don't worry, you're going to be okay. But this is kind of a mind warp as a reading, and maybe you need to watch it again, or maybe you understand it already, and that would be great. Okay, Love Driver, I hope that helps. All right, we're going to move on. Looks like we're going to, let's see, we've got Fluffles. I saw a note from Esther. Let me just do some homework here. I got to do some homework to find out what's going on behind the scenes. All right. Perfect. Okie dokie. All right, now, so I am going to get back to Fluffles, and I've got one more posted. So that's all the readings, okay? That's all the readings we have for tonight. I'm going to put this up here. Actually, and Esther, if you don't mind, Fluffles wanted to go last, so if it's okay with you, Esther, I will put you up next. How about that? Let's have a look here. Okay. All right, so that's how that looks. Zingtao, Red Bar is watching. He seems upset. Are you going to apologize to him? I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we're going to shuffle it up, folks. Alrighty. Okay, Esther, you're up. Let's have a look. Thank you for the donation. Alright, let's have a look here. Cards are well shuffled already, but I'm just going to go to the very last second so that you are a witness. Alright, here we go. Alright, Esther, let's have a look what's going on. Oh, you know what? I've got something I wanted to share with you. Hi, Esther. Was it last week or you were here, or maybe the week before or something? But anyway, I was going on and on about finances, global finances and things like that, personal finances, like as though I'm some kind of expert and stuff. I'm not, okay? I'm very interested in finances. If you saw my astrology, you could see why. But also, if you saw my astrology, you'd know that I'm highly conflicted with personal finances. And if you knew me personally, then I wouldn't want to go into too much detail. But anyway, I've learned a tremendous amount about what doesn't work. And for some reason or other, I've had like what I call significant relationships of all kinds. Partners, friends, family, where I seem to play a very sort of, I don't know what the word is, not pivotal, but a trigger, some sort of trigger in their finances where they move from one level of understanding to another level of standing, which is better for them. In my own personal finances, Esther, I'm sharing this because you mentioned something, I think. In my own personal finances, I've had some terrible losses because I made certain investments on good faith with the best of my understanding, only to discover that they were disastrous, and then I had to do a lot of homework to understand how and why they were disastrous. So again, I've learned things the hard way. So it would be really nice to have known what would be good investments to begin with. And again, with my personal astrology, very big money and very big wealth is indicated, but it's also highly conflicted. So it's how do you handle that energy? It's very difficult because I've been in situations where in my life, because of certain things that I can do with like art and music and writing, where I've been offered extremely lucrative contracts to get into that world. And I was already operating in the world of art, music, and writing. And most of the contracts I discovered were really toxic. And they frightened me. But they were very seductive because they involved huge amounts of money. And I turned those down. And I chose to walk away. Very self-destructive financially. I had one contract which was just the opposite. It would have been transformative, life-changing, catapulting me into a world of wealth and opportunity that's extremely rare. And I screwed that up because I thought it had the same hallmarks as everything else. And I was terrified that if I accepted it, I would turn into some kind of beast and I would be abandoning my family, because my family was highly unstable growing up. And I was, looking back, I was sort of like a shock absorber that allowed a lot of things to happen. And I was terrified that if I pulled away, the whole family would just completely implode. And so I chose not to sign that contract. And that was self-destructive as well. So money is definitely an issue. It's definitely an important subject to me. It's important for everybody. And so yes, Esther, I did make some very bad investments because I tried to catch up for losses and I made some catastrophic mistakes. maybe that'll change one day. Maybe I made one or two good ones. We'll find out in time. So thank you, Esther, for pointing that out. Okay, let's get on with your reading now. Let's get over to the stage. All right, here we are. All right, Esther, I hope you're all sitting comfortably with your invisible friends, tucked up and cozy. I believe you're up sort of in the upstate New York area, so it's probably pretty chilly, snowy, icy, I would imagine. So get cozy, get comfortable. Bless this deck. Thank you very much. Bless all the technology, the cameras, the lights, the multiple softwares, the cables, the platform, the technology, the computers, everything that allows us to do this magical thing that we have here in our little community. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. Here's the situation. Here's the challenges. And here's how we're going to handle things. Let's have a look. And external influences, we have the Death card. Don't be scared, Esther. This is very much about transformation. And in its highest expression, it's very much about transformational healing. It's almost like a follow-up from the last reading, because we are all going to die at some point. And I was just thinking the other day, I don't want to be too morbid or grim about this, but I'm at a point in life where I've been to more funerals than I've been to weddings. And it kind of makes me sad. In the last few years, I've lost some people very, very dear to me. Extremely untimely death. It felt very cruel and unfair to those people. And what can you do? But it's also a very beautiful thing, because in each case, the people with whom I was very close, I've enjoyed a very, let's say, beautiful relationship between myself and them on the other side. And every now and again, we have a communication or an event, like an encounter. It's absolutely beautiful. And with the Death card here, let me see if I can get the image up really closely. It's like accepting that the fear of change. A lot of people are terrified of change, but we are going through phenomenal, monumental changes in global history right now. It affects everybody. It affects everybody on the global scale and right down to the individual scale. I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but yes, you can see it. Can you see that little tiny couple little towers with the new horizon, the new sun, and the new lights far, far away on the other side? Well, that's where we're heading, folks. But it can be a scary journey, because transformation, a lot of people do not like change. They like what they know. They want to know the landscape, the terrain, and everything about their world, so that they can navigate smoothly through life and live the life that they want to live, rather than having to face into a world where, in other words, look at it this way. It's very, very simple. The Death card is very simple in some ways. It's like a saying. It's like an expression. Evolve or die. Adapt or die. It's really simple. And that is the essence of evolution. If we don't adapt to circumstances and life and all the nuances of life, we effectively, incrementally, are diminishing ourselves. And it's very difficult to do, because, in other words, it's almost like saying it's the best thing you can do is when you sense an issue or a problem, it's best to walk right up to it and stare it in the face and deal with it as it is, and then invite it to come to you. I have an expression: dear invisible friends, dear guardian angels, dear God, heaven, dear healing power of love, please bring to me that which is mine. Please take away from me that which is not mine. And that could be anything. a person, a relationship, a house, a thing, an idea, a belief, a habit, a want, a desire. And so I like to streamline into to where things are very, very simple. I like things to be simple and clear. And I have a kind of a sort of a minimalist lifestyle, you could say. But when you deliberately choose to walk into the fear, you can start to realize, like, oh, that was just in my imagination. Well, it's understandable. But when you walk into it, you're basically committing yourself. You're surrendering to the phenomenon of evolution. You're surrendering to that which is divine, where you walk into it and say, I am going to live. I'm going to live my life. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I have no idea. You might have a lot of experience where you think, well, there's good probability I'm going to do this. I'm going to have maybe bacon and eggs for breakfast, or maybe I'll have some cereal, and then maybe I'll go for a walk, maybe hang out with friends and family online, maybe cuddle with pets or something. And these are things that are already established. But there's other things that you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Not exactly tomorrow. You don't. You might have it very scheduled out every minute of the day. But there could be things that come out of nowhere. Let's have a look. What's the situation itself? We have here the Two of Wands. It's sort of like a destiny card in a way, where it's like being at a point in life where you have, lived, you get up you live your life, go to sleep, wake up every day. You go through life's challenges, you meet them, you go through high points in life and low points in life, and you get to a point of understanding where you are sowing the seeds of destiny. It's just like, wow, that's really cool. I am what I think, having become what I thought. And so with the Two of Wands, it feels to me that you're living very, very much in the moment right now, at this point in your life, at this chapter in your life, where you're realizing you had already previously sown many seeds in your life to get to this point where you are right now. But with each new day where you wake up, where you survived another night, and you wake up to a new dawn, you're realizing, wow, I have an opportunity to plant new seeds. Sowing the seeds of love. Why not? That's the ultimate choice. And in so doing, I'm effectively regenerating and recreating my destiny, which will happen tomorrow or the day after. But again, like with the previous reading, I associate the death here with this huge transition, where Pluto is changing for the whole world, and it's going to change the world. The whole world landscape is going to change forever, for everybody. En masse, in global populations, historically, with countries, with finance, right down to the individual. And a lot of people don't like that. They don't want to evolve. They don't want to adapt. They don't want to face the unknown. They don't want to walk into the things that are most terrifying, so that they can come out the other side and go, oh, that wasn't so bad. I was just scared of my own shadow. Stupid. Anyway, to me this looks very good news, where maybe you just needed a reminder here in the reading that every day you wake up, you're planting the seeds of destiny for your new tomorrow. And that's cool, and that's how you create your world. And I think we've talked about this before, where you're one of those people, a life well lived. This might have been very deeply ingrained into your being, in your soul, in your DNA, in your astrology chart, where you were always a natural at making good decisions, understanding that your decisions have outcomes. So that's a beautiful thing. However, what's the problem here? Does that always translate into personal happiness for you and for everyone else around you? there might be a sense of disappointment that no matter how hard you have tried, and no matter how hard you worked, no matter how much inspiration and courage you have infused into your life, in your world, in your immediate surroundings, your friends, your family, the people who you love, the people who are important to you, it turns out that for some of them, perhaps your nearest and dearest, there is loss and pain and suffering, and they never really ever did get the chance to taste the happiness that you had. And it's also at the point where there might have been some, almost like an idealized version of happiness and home and family that you held very, very, very dear to your heart since you were very young, and it never quite came out the way you wished or planned or hoped or expected. Okay? And that can happen. There might be a Neptune element in there involved. So that could be understandable. I'm sure all of us suffered from that to some degree. Maybe, who knows? It could be anything. It could, perhaps the kids didn't turn out. Perhaps you didn't have kids. Perhaps you didn't have the right home in the right place at the right time in the way that you ideally would have wanted and constructed in your own, let's say, if you were completely in command and control of your destiny. But that's okay. So how are we going to deal? So this to me indicates a very deeply buried and kind of sad disappointment that you really don't share with people. You don't like to talk about it. You don't like to acknowledge it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to share it. It's just there lingering inside. It might pop up into your consciousness every now and again, like, God, I wish I could have, I wish I could have had a house on the beach or something. Or I wish this or that had worked out with so-and-so and we could have had this or that kind of family type structure, but, well, it didn't happen. But again, those would only happen in tiny microscopic doses because this is probably too painful to acknowledge, too confusing to try and figure out or understand, no matter how well you've lived your life. Okay, so how are we going to deal with this moving forward? Some relief here. So with the Queen of Pentacles, this is a reminder, don't worry, Esther. Seriously, don't worry. Yes, life is not perfect. There are things that coulda, woulda, shoulda. Maybe you could have done this. Maybe you should have done that. Maybe you would have done this or that if such and such and such and such did or didn't happen. But it didn't. So there's a lot of disappointment here. And it piled up and piled up and piled up. And that's just like the little drawer where you put your disappointments. It's just, I don't want to look in there. I don't want to go in there. And that might be a very sad energy for you, but this is beautiful. This is a reminder that you still have a good life. You still have lived a life well lived. You've made good decisions. You've enjoyed and reaped the rewards of good decisions. You've been a good steward of your assets, of your values, of your beliefs, of your gifts, of your talents. You've done the very best that you possibly could with being you and maximizing your talents and gifts and resources in a way that created a world for you that, others might envy. But also, whether you like it or know it or not, your abilities with worldly three-dimensional manifestation, perhaps you're very stable, or maybe you're compassionate in a way that is, generous with yourself and others, that you have impacted other people's lives because of who you are, and that you live kind of in the moment, but with a very clear understanding about how destiny works. So that to me looks very good, because you couldn't have had this card here without having a really good understanding of how three-dimensional life works. And if you have that gift, it's actually very rare. okay? It's pretty rare. It's like being a good custodian of worldly things. It did not come easy. You were not born with a silver spoon. This is something that you created. And don't forget that, okay? Just don't forget that. The journey continues. And there will be scary moments ahead, but every day you make new decisions, you plant new seeds to go forward. And you're going to be fine, okay? Just continue to be the good custodian of your life that you are, okay? I hope that helps, Esther. All right, now I am going to, let's have a look here. We're going to move on. Let's see, did Fluffles get back yet? I hope so. Anyway, I'm going to do her reading now. So I've got to... I'm going to play one of my own songs, I think, here, just for fun. Let's have a look. You know, I'm going to play the piano rendition from LINA for my song Surrender. Here, it sounds like this. Wait a minute. Where is it? Okay. Here we go. This is it. It's a piano solo from LINA from Argentina. Hope you like it. I see you. All right. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're just going to call it out. I'm totally blind. Fluffles, get yourself comfortable. Get your invisible friends around you. Get cozy. Trust in the process. I got my thing going over here. My invisible friends are hanging out, doing what they can, of course. Thank you, Fluffles. All right, cards are well shuffled. Let's go for it. Let's just dive right in. What kind of messages do we have here tonight for Fluffles about whatever's going to happen over the next 3 months? Interesting. Well, Fluffles, again, the next 3 months are going to be massive time of astrological transition, okay? Huge transitions, very, very deep down at the most profound levels that are possible with human experience. Literally. And that's for the whole of humanity, and that's for each individual, okay? All right, here's the situation. Here's the challenges, and here's how we're going to handle things, okay? Let's have a look. External influences, again, I'm going to default to the planets, most likely. Okay, so we've got the Seven of Cups here. My feeling is that it's going to be very, very, very easy to misread situations, people, opportunities, either externally. Let's just pretend. Give me a second here. I want to. Okay. So pretend I'm Fluffles and I'm just living my life, okay? And things go on out there. There's the world doing its thing, and you already have a life history. So you have deeply bedded inside of you like an operating system. You know, when this happens, I do that. When that happens, I do this. Combinations, I do that, that, and that. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. I speak English. I'm interested in tarot and astrology. I am successful. I'm enterprising. I'm unique. I'm bold. These are things that I know. And I look at the world through the lens of Fluffles. There it is. There it's okay. There's you. There's you doing what you do. And I am going to live my life going forward. What does that look like? So when I see the Seven of Cups here, there might be what appears to be out there might be actually a little bit different from what is actually out there. What's that expression? Perception is reality. Or is it that reality is perception? So if you have a perception of what's going on out there, and you have determined, well, that's the reality of my world out there, so I'm going to go and do this and that and that and this, okay? And then you discover, wait a minute, I could swear that I just detected my external reality to be this, and now I discover it's that. What's going on here? That's awkward. Oh, dear. So there's a Neptunian feel here with the Seven of Cups. That Neptune energy, it's very magical and it's beautiful when it's working perfectly. Like, I think of it as the Einstein card. If you are in your highest levels of, let's say, resonance, where you're really in tune with heaven, you're feeling a divine communication, you feel that your invisible friends are close, you can almost feel like you're psychic, like you're empathic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, and you're starting to sense that. And that's fantastic when it works. But it can be catastrophic when it doesn't work, because a lot of people become, let's say, exposed to higher resonance, higher frequencies, and they can't handle it, and they freak out. They start to think they're going insane. They're hearing voices. They're seeing things. They become delusional. They start being unable to handle life. They're going to be smoking weed and drinking hard liquor and staying up, sleeping 3 hours a night, just doing stuff on phones and computers and just anything to kind of soften down this undefinable, very diffuse energy that can be very hard to understand because it's not tangible. You can't touch it. When I personally have, for example, an encounter with my invisible friends, I can almost feel like I can touch them. I can see them. I can see their faces and their clothing and their everything. But I can't touch them like I can, hold a glass of water. That's it. Because they are behind the curtain. They're behind the veil. They're living on higher frequencies. And that's where it gets tricky. Like, it's called the Einstein card, I think, because, well, I call it the Einstein card, is because Einstein had this very powerful Neptunian Pisces vibe in his astrology. Maybe it was the 12th house. I don't know any details about him, but I know he's a Pisces, and he divined his world-changing piece of information from heaven. E equals MC squared. That came through divine inspiration. That's the Neptune Pisces 12th house energy. That came to him by invocation. He was basically praying to his invisible friends, please send me the solution because I can't figure out how to do it here on earth in a three-dimensional way. And so he was sent a vision. And the vision was E equals MC squared. He saw that. Those physical E equals, he saw that, and then he went back home, put it on a blackboard, and looked at it and kind of went, oh my God, that's the answer. So that's one side of the Seven of Cups. So that's out there, but it's very difficult to navigate in those worlds. So what I'm sensing for you, Fluffles, is that, like it or not, you are evolving into a much more of a high frequency, high resonant person where things might get very kind of weird and trippy. You've seen those movies like, well, there's a bunch of them, like, I can't remember the titles right now, but they're all to do with the spirit. There's Powder, there's The Lovely Bones, there's the one with Michael, Archangel Michael, there's there's Ghosts. They deal with very real life depictions of the great beyond. So my feeling for you, okay, Fluffles, is that, like it or not, you're heading deeper and deeper into that world where you're going to become more and more resonant, perhaps with your own invisible friends, where the world of psychic mediumship or clairvoyance might expand for you. On the other hand, it can be a little frightening and a little bit disorienting because, again, you're dealing with things that are very, very hard to, let's say, transcribe into three-dimensional understanding, three-dimensional reality. Now, I operate in this world. I'm an instrument. I'm basically an instrument. I am a transceiver. I transmit energy and I receive energy. I stay neutral so that the healing power of love can work through me. So, like a cell phone on voice mode. So, I can invoke the healing power of love, own it, keep inside of me, and then I can transmit it outwardly. When you're also operating as a psychic medium, for example, you have to stay incredibly pure and clear and open and undistracted by external irrelevancies so that you can perceive the super ultra high frequency energy that resonates outside and around you in your aura. And it can come into you as something that is intelligible, like, oh, I just heard this message from my invisible. Oh, I'm supposed to go and pick up so-and-so at the bus station or at the office. Oh. And that can be very, very disorienting. That's why people freak out and they become schizophrenic, or they take Zoloft or Xanax, and because they don't want to expand. They want everything to be very tightly three-dimensional and controllable. So, in your case, Esther, because what I'm sensing is you have to be aware of both sides of it. So let's say you are expanding spiritually in your levels of awareness, and it gets a bit weird. It's very, very easy to want to, let's say, try to manage that energy in a three-dimensional way by things like smoking too much or drinking too much or too many stimulants, like too much Red Bull or too much hard liquor or something, anything to try and manipulate the ether. And that can be very hazardous and self-destructive, okay? So you have to be very careful, because you might be you're a very capable person, but when a person goes through that level of evolution and resonance, it can be very disorienting. Like that Tom Cruise movie where he's going up into the atmosphere and the stratosphere, and he's very powerful jet, and he's very conversant. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. He's going 3 times the speed of sound, and then everything kind of gets very, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. The joystick doesn't work properly anymore. All the dials and controls and the lights and the buttons, they don't mean anything anymore. Whoa. Okay? All right, so let's go over here. So going forward, you've got to be aware that it's very easy to misread reality, okay? And so you might want to be patient with yourself. You might want to deliberately nurture and encourage things like meditation or deliberate downtime where you kind of purify yourself. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but do things like where you only do, you make sure you sleep as well as you can, uninterrupted preferably, where you have a very clean, clear kind of diet, fresh meats, fruits, vegetables, drinking just plain water, and that's about it, getting exercise, and just allowing yourself to be very immersed in a very pure, simple reality. And then get used to what that feels like. And it might be different from what you're used to, but it's about recalibrating. It's very, very important to calibrate yourself properly so that you're not too disoriented when let's say, reality impacts your life. You have to have a very solid reference point. Okay, what's the situation itself going forward? Okay, so the Devil card again here. In your situation, it makes me feel is that you're very, very tightly bound to an existing form of reality, an existing set of rules, protocols, operating system, lifestyle, and a way of conducting things. You're deeply attached to this, married to this, as if there's no other choice. And that can be hazardous going forward, because that can easily, in other words, if you insist on tethering yourself and anchoring yourself into a certain type of reality, while at the same time you are being challenged to experience and allow for a new form of reality to make itself apparent in your life, in your world, the more you resist, the more the problems persist. Okay? I don't know if I said that correctly, but the more you resist, the more it persists. Okay? And so, of course, again, fear of the unknown. People like to know that their reality has definition and purpose. And so over the next 3 months, it makes me feel as though it's important that you become very aware of your life, and as you look around you, if you can observe yourself, if you can ask your invisible friends to help you to understand where you are deeply attached and tied to habits and belief systems and attitudes and behaviors, because some of them are going to be very good and very healthy and very appropriate, like very strong mind, for example, very, very capable. But you might also have some very destructive, now obsolete habits and behaviors, especially in the world of relationships, that are no longer serving you. And yet you're deeply attached to them and very reluctant to let go because that's what you know. Okay? So, again, what I'm seeing here is attachment to certain situations where relationships are very, very important to you over here. And excuse me. See, all of this is in Scorpio. Sorry, Venus is up here. But anyway, the South Node is in Libra, okay? So the South Node can be like a drain, like quicksand, like a black hole. And the more you try to get out of it, and the more you convince yourself you're getting, the harder it is. It makes it harder and harder to get out. And so it's difficult. And how do you release yourself from the allure of the South Node, from the comfort and the stability of everything that you know regarding life and love and relationships and how they all work? It's very tricky. So, what's the problem here? Okay. You might feel a little bit unstable. In other words, you've built a good life, okay? This is Four of Pentacles is a card of stability and strength and solid foundations and building the foundations for a good new future. But if you take it to extremes, it can translate into hoarding and being very, very scared of anything that could disrupt your three-dimensional reality. Highly, deeply resistant to making any kind of change, especially if you have a well-established reality. Let's say if you built your own home, for example, or you built your own business, for example. And then the concept of that changing or actually becoming a shackle or having expectations becomes a problem. Holding on too tight to certain three-dimensional material expectations of reality could actually be an impediment to you, okay? So you could, in other words, you get to the situation where we are in the reading at the moment, where you could easily delude yourself and fool yourself that you're doing the right thing, even though deep down you know you're actually still shackled and chained. It's just because it's very, very hard to let go of the fear of the unknown and what happens when fundamental, irreversible change happens, especially when it's very hard to define. What does it look like? What does my reality look like? What is that? The other beautiful, by the way, I don't want to scare you, because the beautiful thing about the Seven of Cups here is that, let's say you tune into your divine imagination, divine inspiration, you can tap into that as a form of inspiration that will help you unshackle yourself and help you liberate yourself from the fear of instability. But that, of course, requires trusting in the great beyond, trusting your invisible friends, trusting in divine inspiration and divine guidance, and surrendering to that. Very scary. All right, takes a lot of courage. Okay, how are we going to deal with this going forward? Yay! So we got the Knight of Wands. So basically, my feeling is that you understand exactly. You know, you don't have to tell me in any details. My feeling is that you're already translating this reading and recalibrating, rewriting this reading to fit you perfectly in your understanding of how I deliver readings. And so it's like you're typing in the screen, okay, now I know what you're talking about, TL. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Okay, I got it. So you recognize the challenges ahead of you. You recognize the amazing opportunity here, this beautiful energy here, but also the dangers. You recognize your weakness here and a weakness here. And this is all self-imposed, and it doesn't have to be that way. So how do you deal with it going forward? You take everything that you already know and the hint of wonder that's buried in this reading, and you charge into it. convincing yourself and telling yourself and the rest of the world that you're going to be not just okay, you're going to dive into it head on. And you're going to be the one who saves yourself, because no one else is going to save you. Okay? With this makes me feel this is all about you saving yourself, because with this energy here, it's very easy to basically trap yourself into an evolutionary quicksand. And then it congeals and you're stuck, and the further on that time goes, you can become more and more stuck. And then this turns into a delusional nightmare. And then what do? However, the beautiful side of the reading is that you are very aware that you are bound to certain attitudes, beliefs, situations, behaviors, relationships that you know damn well are not good for you. You're just reluctant to let go because that's what you know. That's what's created your world and your stability. But guaranteed, the world is changing profoundly. And for you, it's very much about this. So you might as well just jump into it. See, because, like some people, when people are doing well and they don't seem to have any really serious, heavy life problems, they might be angry or frustrated or pissed off, but they're not a double amputee or quadriplegic, or they didn't just receive a death sentence of some kind of hideous disease. Let's say you're not in that category. Let's say you're a perfectly healthy, valid, viable, vibrant human being that's going to keep going into a new life. In the next 3 months, it's going to be big changes. Because you are so strong already, no one's going to come in and save you. No one is going to do that, because probably a lot of people are partly jealous and thinking like, why would I go and help her out? She's got it all already. I mean, and sometimes people who have it all already are perceived poorly as by other people, like, she thinks she knows everything. She thinks she's got everything. Blah, 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 blah. And it's not only that they are not going to save you. They wouldn't save you even if you asked for help. So my feeling is that be aware. No one's going to save you. No one's going to help you. This is your mission. It's your life. You're going to take care of it because you can, because you have to. All right. But the beautiful thing is you're opening up. Your spirit is resonating and opening up to higher frequencies, higher levels, where you're going to have your invisible friends on your side more than ever before. And it's going to become a real thing for you. Okay? I hope that reading helps you. Okay, Fluffles? I'm just going to leave it there, okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. Oh, look, it's still a lovely day out at my beachfront property on the Oregon coast. Isn't that nice? Ah. Oh, I'll tell you something funny. I was in the car park the other day, early morning, going to my little ritual of my McDonald's coffee. It's a very important thing for me. And I'm used to seeing all sorts of birds. A lot of them look very sad and undernourished. They're desperate for water. They're desperate for food. And there's pigeons and little blackbirds of all kinds and tweety birds that make weird sounds. And then I heard this sort of "arr! Arr!" I thought, what the ah? That's a seagull. And I looked around, a seagull? What's a seagull doing out here? And I looked, and there it was, right at the top of the tallest lamp post in the car park. This big fat seagull looking around like he owned the place. Arr! Arr! And I thought, what's he doing? He's 350 miles from the ocean. I thought, there's no water here. There's no rivers. There's nothing. And then he took off. He went, ah, and then flew away over the mountains, heading east. And I thought, Oh my God. Maybe he got blown over here to Las Vegas from California and he ended up at Lake Mead. And now he's a freshwater seagull, probably very much on his own. I'm going to have to go out to Lake Mead again to see if there's other seagulls there. But anyway, that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and kindness and your generosity. I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm going to play a little tune. Bless you in your week ahead. I'd love to do more readings during the week. It's just finding time and energy to do it because I've always got the ideas. Okay? So, anyway, I'm going to check out. Take care, everybody. Good night. Yes, my house is beautiful, isn't it? Just beautiful. I'm going to dance on the porch.